time to fuel your business success. Welcome to Harmonious at Lunch. We're bringing you bite-sized advice and expert conversations to drive clarity and growth 5 days a week. Make sure you join our Facebook group at humanopt.com/lunch, where listeners like you and our guests hang out so we can find harmony in business together. If you're building a business, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to another Harmonious at Lunch update. It's the weekly update. Are we feeling the new intro and outro music? I don't know about you. I'm at least entertaining myself. I like it. I enjoy it. And we actually use the same music on our other Human Op podcast, Running with Scissors, coming out soon. So if you subscribe to this channel, then you will most likely see all about Running with Scissors, and you'll hear the same awesome intro music on that podcast too. But let's recap the week. We had an awesome week of podcasts here on Harmonious at Lunch. We had 4 super cool guests. As far as the quality of the episodes and the content, this was another one of those, I don't know. There was some ups and some downs with the content. I told you I would not lie to you. I would tell you exactly how I felt about the content. And this is actually the first week I think I've said that, but or that I've said maybe some iffy episodes, but I want to talk about it. I want to go over all of them. We got clips. I'm going to show you, give you my 2 cents on the episodes, the behind the scenes, the kind of overview of what we talked about. But as far as the guests and the people, the human beings that I spoke to this week, rock stars. It was a sausage fest. We had 4 dudes. I'm just putting that out there. We had Damon Lemby, Bronson Hill, Kevin Jans, and Charlie Johnson rounding out the week on Thursday. But super cool. We covered real estate investing. We covered consciousness. We covered leadership, and being niche specific and serving the government. So kind of a cool, interesting array of topics to cover on the show this week. But let's start off with Damon on Monday. Sorry, I'm looking for my clips over here. I got lost for a second. But Damon was awesome. And I absolutely loved his concept, his topic, learn it all versus know it all leadership. Just right off the bat, if you didn't listen to the episode, based on what I just said, I know you already just pictured somebody who was a know-it-all in leadership, who you either worked for or worked with at some point. I know that's what happened to me when I was talking to Damon on the show. But it was really interesting how he kind of broke down cultivating this learning organization and really making it an intentional focus for you as a leader. He gave different stats, and he talked about the outcomes, the productivity, the cohesiveness of a team that's really built around a learn-it-all approach versus a know-it-all approach. And he talked about recruiting and retaining top talent. So my take on this was, it's really simple. I mean, the more you can be a learn-it-all versus a know-it-all, nobody wants to work for a know-it-all, right? Like if you approach your leadership style as a know-it-all, you have to have all the answers, versus maybe a more humility-driven, humility-focused approach in saying, I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to fail, I'm willing to let others fail and learn around me too. It's a concept that I know is highly preached in the leadership space, but it's seldom practiced, at least seldom practiced well. So it was great to hear from Damon, his mistakes, how his transition even from being a know-it-all, or at least more of a know-it-all, to learned it all in his business and businesses over the years, and what that looked like from his perspective. So let me put the episode title, or the episode thumbnail, on the screen here. If you're watching this episode, if you go on over to YouTube, that's the thumbnail you're going to be looking for. Leadership styles with the old-fashioned judicial scale on there with learn versus know. But let's play a clip from Damon's episode, and we'll be back in a second.
Instead of PTO, LTO, where you have a day or a couple hours where people can actually go in and learn new skills. Because at the end of the day, with how the world's moving, especially with AI, sometimes it's not even about the skills you have now. It's about the ability to continue to learn and adapt and grow, which I think is super important.
How great is that? Offering your team, your employees, paid learning time, learning for the company, learning for their personal passions. I think that's incredible to incentivize people to learn, grow, develop their own skills. And they're going to be grateful for you. They're going to turn around and apply that to your company and their position there, if done the right way. You look at big companies like Google, and they famously have I don't know if they still do this, to be honest with you, but I know they at least used to, and I believe they still do. They have a 20% rule where 20% of the time, basically one day of the week, employees get to allocate to their own projects. And a lot of times those projects get rolled back into Google as different services, but they're created on personal time. If you can invest in your people and just show them that you believe in them, you trust them, and you want them to grow and succeed, that will come back to benefit you and your organization. And Damon's episode was amazing. So thank you, Damon, for stopping by, being a guest on the show. Tuesday's episode with Bronson Hill. This was great. This age-old topic of making money while you sleep, right? Talking about investing in real estate, passive income, not just real estate investing though, developing a mindset of making passive income. And you could apply this to your business too. I know a lot of business owners, they're really just job owners. We've covered that on this show before, and I've talked about how important it is with our guests to really build a business, not just build a job, and build a business that's scalable. So Bronson's episode, we covered this. We talked about significantly growing and scaling your business. We did talk about real estate. That's his jam. That's what he's done. That's how he's built his wealth. So of course he's passionate about that. And real estate's not for everybody. So if this is one of those episodes where, or if you're one of those people where you're like, oh, I can't hear somebody else talking about real estate, what I would say is you still listen to the episode, because we did talk more mindset about investing and making money while you sleep rather than just like passive investing with real estate. And he also made the distinction between single family investing and multi-unit investing, because I don't know about you, but me personally, I've heard so many people preach single family investing, and I don't like the strategy. It's not my thing. I tried to get into it a number of years ago, and the more I looked at it, the more confused I got. The economics didn't make sense. The scalability didn't make sense. And for some people, I know it does. I'm not judging you. All I'm saying is it's not for me, but it was nice to hear a refreshing take. And he said it wasn't really for him either. So cool perspective on that. We also talked about developing a wealth worthiness attitude and, analyzing where you sit with your mindset. Where do you believe you are in terms of wealth worthiness? Because breaking that maybe even subconscious belief of the level of wealth you think you are worthy of is sometimes all it takes to getting to the next level. And he even talked about when you inherit that from people, like if your parents only ever made, let's call it $100,000 a year, you take on this subconscious belief often where if you make more than that, you get unsure of yourself, where you don't even think you can exceed that because, well, your parents never did, so you can't. And separating yourself from that belief could be the catalyst to your own personal wealth growth. Really cool episode. Let's play a clip from Bronson here and check it out.
Yeah, well, I think that there's a lot of myths out there, Brandon, that, passive income is a term that gets thrown around. But, when you buy a rental house or two or three, it's not really passive, because even if I have a property manager, I've still got to buy the house. I've got to manage the manager, or there's issues sometimes with the tenant, or there's issues with, the plumbing, or, something comes up. And so you're constantly having to kind of deal with it. It never really works out exactly kind of how you want it.
Yeah, exactly what I was talking about there with scaling single family investing. And that episode was full of gold nuggets about, again, mostly your mindset and your money and investing mindset, breaking free from past habits, beliefs, and patterns to really start to scale your income, scale your wealth. And I think as business owners, entrepreneurs, we all need to hear that stuff. And we need to be reminded of it, because it's so easy to fall back into past patterns and habits. So thanks, Bronson, for stopping by. If you haven't checked out that episode, I highly recommend you go do it. And even if you study money all the time, maybe a refresher or a new look on something might be valuable for you. So check that one out. Next up, the Wednesday episode, Kevin Jans. Kevin, actually already at the time of this recording, a 2-time guest on the show. This episode, I'll be honest, it was very heavily focused on, niching, serving a niche customer in the context of actually working with the United States government, the federal government. That's not for everybody. And honestly, Kevin's really clear about that. He's not trying to win everybody over and say you have to think about working with the United States government. But what I liked about it was the nuggets that he dropped about really defining who your customer is. He uses a 3 W's approach: the who, the what, and the why. So who buys from you? What are they buying? And most importantly, what is the core why or the specific problem that you solve for them? Is that revolutionary advice? No, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, pretty sure we talked about that with another guest like 3 weeks ago. So why am I saying that's cool? Because we all need a reminder. We all get sidetracked sometimes and think, oh, I can go to a different vertical with the product, or I could serve a different customer and do the same thing. You could, but have you mastered what you're already doing? Have you mastered your customer service, your retention, your repeat buyers, your upsells, your value ladder, all of the things associated with being truly scalable and profitable? Probably not, because a lot of people are guilty of that. And only the best brands in the world, and I don't mean the biggest companies, but the best brands have truly mastered that. So we can all use a refresher on it. But we also talked about here, while I toss the episode cover on the screen, I keep forgetting to do that, but it's niche marketing for those of you who are listening. And if you're watching, it's on there. Go check out that thumbnail. But Kevin also said he talked about revisiting your niche quarterly, making sure you are on top of the market problems, what people are buying. And he said this was crucial for him and his company as COVID came about. It was a landscape that was moving so quickly. And then actually it's happening again now with Doge and the federal government, and his clients are affected. The government's affected. Understanding what's really happening and staying on top of the 3 W's, but in particular, the why of your customers, crucial for him and his company's success and his client's success. I'll play a clip here in a second from Kevin, but this was a great episode about thinking about your business and your customer differently and with a higher degree of focus. So whether or not you want to contract with the government, it's worth a listen. And I don't even want to push you that way. And Kevin doesn't want to push you that way either. But the way you look at your customer, the niche that you serve, the person you serve, and how you do that, very valuable episode.
And in the early days, if I'll zoom out and think, oh, anybody can have a government contract. Okay, that's somewhat true. I can get into the nuances of why it's not. But by that logic, any business I can sell to. It's easy to say. In fact, when you've been a contracting officer and people recognize what that is, you'll have a lot of people say, oh, can I pick your brain? You can help us with blank. And whether it's winning the contract, administering it afterwards, figuring out how the contracts are awarded, all the rules around them, et cetera, it's a lot to throw out to the world. And so I thought I could help everybody. And so I spent a lot of time talking to people that there wasn't any commonality between them, talking to large companies, small companies, service companies, ones that provided a product, ones that were developing a product, ones that did research and development, all over the map. And while it was flattering to have, hey, we can talk to lots of people, it never went anywhere. And it'll keep you from solving problems that you're not really the best at.
Yeah, eye-opening episode, and one of the ones that just makes you think about how you're doing what you do, and are you communicating it well, and are you really serving your customers at the highest level? Rounding out the week, Charlie Johnson. This was an episode, I don't know, I wasn't 100% bought in. I love the idea, don't get me wrong. And Charlie was fantastic, great person. But I sat and just thought about the complexities of what he was proposing. And we talked all about making a whole new C-suite role in all businesses called the Chief Consciousness Officer. I think right off the bat, a couple of things that might need a rebrand as far as the label or the title of this position. I don't see a lot of big companies adopting that. Even we talked about just having this person who's neutral, having this neutrality in the C-suite for interpersonal conflicts and strategy and all these other things that are, necessary to business. But I don't know if this is a whole position. And I really don't even know how you would roll this out in a company without getting, or in order to get buy-in from all the employees. It's one of those things that's such a massive shift that I feel like it needs to be rolled out on a smaller scale first, get a lot of buy-in and success in order to then go to larger companies and say, no, this is the way that we have to do this. Again, I think it's an interesting concept, but in the short term, very, very big lift. But Charlie's ambitious, and this is something that he does for companies. and he's passionate about it. And that's the most important thing, because if you're going to take on that big of a shift and elevate the global consciousness in the workplace, you have to have someone behind it who's passionate about it. We did talk about how this is not just another wellness program in workplaces, because those have the same adoption crisis, right? Or adoption issue. I don't know if it's a crisis, but it's more than a wellness program. It's really just bringing neutrality into the workplace, so we don't get triggered. We don't operate with biases. We don't get blindsided by things. I like the concept. I just don't know how it's going to work in practice. So let me play a clip here from this episode, and then we'll come back and round this week out.
A chief consciousness officer brings in neutrality. It allows both sides to understand that they're just the heads to the tails of the coin. For the side that thinks a Republican that thinks the Democrats ruining the world, the Democrat thinks the Republicans ruin the world. That simple phrase sounds like everyone understands that. But when you bring that to their attention, it's a seed that's planted. The universe is the best gardener in the world, and they can't unhear it. It allows them to start to be aware that they're just like the other side, just to kind of bring a little bit less division and less conflict.
So you can see kind of what he's talking about there. I put the thumbnail on the screen here, conscious leadership with a compass in the middle. I love the idea, honestly. It's a big lift, as I've said multiple times. I wish more people could be less triggered by stupid, meaningless things. Like if you're a Democrat or Republican, and zoom out for a minute. I don't know that we need a whole role to do that, quite frankly. I personally, I know I've echoed this on the show before with guests. I don't vote. I don't care to vote. I don't think we need to be so divided as a country. I really wish we weren't. And I don't know how to fix that. I don't think it's a position within a company. It's a much bigger, more global issue than just having this one position within a company. And I don't know where to go with it. So I'm not going to sit here and solve the problem. That's not my role. But there's a whole lot of amazing people that come on this podcast as guests. There's a whole lot of amazing people that listen to this podcast who probably could find a few ways to solve this problem. But I wish as a whole, we were just able to focus more on the mission, the vision, the core values of the company, get back to basics, and stop fighting about meaningless things. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episodes, the 4 episodes from this week. Again, Charlie Johnson, Kevin Jans, Bronson Hill, and Damon Lemby. I hope you join us for another amazing week of guests lined up. I got 4 great podcasts lined up for next week. So make sure you subscribe, tune in. We'll see you next week on Harmonious at Lunch, and we'll see you back here next Friday for the next update, the weekly update. We'll recap next week's episode. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Another episode of Harmonious at Lunch in the books. I hope this episode made you think and you grabbed some actionable ideas to propel your business. Don't forget to like, comment your takeaways, and subscribe wherever you're listening so we can help more entrepreneurs just like you achieve harmony in their